Hi, I'm Angela Correa from Correatown.
Hi there, I'm Mike Forts and welcome back to Parlour. We've already spent some time in LA's Silver Lake district, but now we're going to head down the road to Los Feliz to drop in on a singer-songwriter at the center of what she calls Correatown. Angela Correa moved up to LA from San Diego, and by the time I caught wind of her, she had already achieved a couple of major milestones for an independent artist on the rise. But before we get into that, let's get her take on the easily heard street conversations one can pick up from her living room window, the indie scene in LA, and working in the studio versus performing live.
We do this sometimes, like sit in here and relax and like hear people walking by and you get random tidbits of conversations. It gives you a lot of story ideas.
Any of those conversations work their way into songs on the new album that's going to come out?
Not quite yet, but there's definitely, I've scribbled things down in my notebook and we've also had some good laughs about it, so. I know it was really scary when I first moved here from San Diego because I was really intimidated by like Los Angeles music scene. Strangely enough, it sort of gets a bad rap, but I felt right into the right place, I think, moving into Echo Park. It all sort of clicked into place, and I was really glad to have met a lot of the people, especially, at the Echo and a lot of, like, the shows at Pear Space or Echo Curio and Mr. T's Bowl, and, playing Spaceland is great, but there's a lot of really cool venues where you can sort of create the kind of show you want to put on. Mm-hmm. Like, for that EP I was touring last winter, I actually had a really cool EP release at Pear Space and had my friend Daniel Ahern play. He and I had toured during the winter. We went up to Utah and around up the coast and whatnot, and had the Monolators' other alter ego, the Cobra Lilies, play, and it was one of their first shows. I remember it ended the night and Mary was marching with giant wooden clogs and playing the saxophone and then said clear space in front of me in case a clog flew. But it was such a really cool night, and all of the bands agreed to donate the whole door, and I donated all my EP sales, and then my friends and I all made baked goods, and we had a baked goods sale too, and all the money that we raised we donated to the Bicycle Kitchen, which is also a really great Los Angeles community cooperative. So it's cool you can do things like that, and everyone's really, I don't know, excited about participating or donating their time or doing something that's about other people's bands or other projects, or it's a nice break from the way you would expect things to be in a place like Los Angeles where people can be so self-absorbed. I love the process of getting to work with different people and getting to... Actually, recording is one of my favorite aspects of playing music because it's such a different experience than playing music live.
In front of people.
Yeah, and in front of people. I like getting to create all those different sounds too that you can't necessarily make with a 4-person band, or if I just play solo by myself. There's so many other elements of sound or melody or harmony or, rhythm that I can't necessarily bring to the performance if I'm just doing a solo acoustic performance. So it's cool to be able to explore all of those different facets of what I imagine I want my music to sound like in a studio,
One real mark of success for an independent artist these days is to have a song featured in a TV show. Angela was lucky enough to have her song All the World included in an episode of Grey's Anatomy, and here she talks about that, as well as her experience recording the music for Jenna Fischer's character in the Judd Apatow comedy Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
I have some really cool people who help me out, and they send my music around to music supervisors, and I was fortunate enough to have, the support and the generosity of Alex Patsavas, the music supervisor on Grey's Anatomy. That's kind of the magic of having your music licensed onto TV or film. It's like the stars align and everybody who has to agree to it likes it, which I think happens quite often. They don't always like what gets, one editor loves or one producer loves, and so sometimes music that, you would think totally would work to picture doesn't get a chance because not everyone's agreeing. So I definitely feel very lucky about having my music in shows like Grey's Anatomy. Or a few years ago, Scott Sterling, who is the Fold Productions and books lots of shows all over LA, he's been a really really supportive person in my music career as well. It's like the first shows I ever played in LA were at Tangier, like with his production company. And essentially he had introduced me to Mike Andrews and said, you know, maybe you guys should work together, because Mike Andrews was doing some sort of residency where he would collaborate with other musicians. And so a year or two passed, and then I got an email from him randomly. I was at work, and he asked if I could come in that evening and record something for him. And I had no idea what it was, and I'd been at work all day. And I think I had an event I had to go to after for work. So I'd say, oh, I could come in like at 8, I guess, you know, thinking, God, I'm so tired. But yeah, I went in, and it was this movie project, and I had no idea what it would be for. And I actually just thought it was going to be a demo that they would then give to either the actress or to some other, like, you know, in my mind, like, professional singer to re-record or something. And I sang that evening with John C. Reilly, and then the band went in a different room and played, and we just, like, cut the track, and I left, and I just had no clue. But then they contacted me later and said that they were going to use my voice in the movie. So
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a guy who loves packaging and artwork. A plain MP3 or CD is just an incomplete package to me. In that regard, Angela's a girl after my own heart. She's just as passionate about her album art as she is about the music itself. And here she shows off her last 2 packages, and we end with some insight from her drummer, Rob Pointer.
I really love screen printing, and I love, like, graphic design. I love drawing and creating different design motifs and whatnot. So for that EP, I had been trying to draw the artwork forever and had, like, sort of hit a stumbling block, and then I just started scribbling faces because that's what the problem was. And then all of a sudden I had this, like, a little array of faces with weird little, you know, expressions, which I just tried to do right now. And it sort of hit me that that was maybe evocative of, like, the EP title, Echoes, and what I was, you know, I wanted it to sort of, like, capture someone's imagination and make them be like, what is this? And actually put the CD in, you know? So for this album, I've been really, really fortunate to have a friend who's an amazing artist. Her name's Alexandra Wiesenfeld, and she created several pieces of artwork for me. She'd listened to the album, I gave it to her, and she painted up some ideas. And one of them is, like, just the most amazing piece of artwork, and she was kind enough to actually give it to me. And so she's letting me use her artwork on the album cover. I'm always wondering if I spend too much of my time, like, on artwork and design and drawing, and not enough time on, like, writing music and recording it. But I think all art sort of, like, feeds itself in a certain respect. So I don't know.
I think you tend to spend a lot of time and care and concern for the artwork and for the design because as I think you mentioned before, I think it's just as important to you as the music that's inside. It's the package. It's not just the sounds that come out of the little disc. It's more about the aesthetic of the things that are outside of the music that influence you or can add texture to the sound inside. So it's very much like a supplemental ingredient to your music.
Yeah, I think, you're probably right about that. I definitely, I think it's important to me that, like, the whole package reflects, like, the vision that I have, regardless of whether I'm able to actually fully encapsulate it or not in the final thing. But I like the idea of artwork reflecting, like, where your head's at or, like, the music, but in a different manner than just, like, listening to the music.
Right on. Well, after all that, obviously I'm going to say that you do well to pick up a copy of Angela's new album, Spark, Burn, Fade. But in the meantime, check out the downloads we have for you, including All the World, as well as performance footage of the as-yet unreleased song, Shine Right Through. Thanks for hanging with us, and I'll see you next week when we pay a visit to the leader of a band whose music is the perfect soundtrack for a night of boozing. Enjoy!
Let's stay up and drive all night towards the distance.